Let me ask you something. When was the last time someone asked you how you were and actually waited for a real answer? Not a quick fine, but a genuine conversation. If you're a man over 60 living by yourself, that question might have caught you off guard. Because if I'm being honest, most men in your situation can't remember the last time someone truly checked in. Here's what I've discovered after decades of working with aging men. The story they tell themselves is always the same. This is just getting older. My body's supposed to slow down. My energy's supposed to fade. My muscles are supposed to disappear. That's normal. And I used to accept that narrative. I used to think aging solo was just harder, and there wasn't much we could do about it. But then the research started coming in. Recent studies, clinical trials, biological markers I'd never paid close enough attention to before. And what I found shocked me. The men who are thriving, who have energy, strength, clear minds, independence, they're not doing anything magical. They're not spending more money. They're not taking exotic supplements. They're addressing 5 specific biological realities that almost nobody talks about. And here's the thing that keeps me up at night. Most doctors don't address these 5 realities because they're not taught in medical school. Your doctor learned about treating disease. They didn't learn about optimizing life for a man living alone. So when you come in with complaints, they run tests. Everything looks normal, and they essentially tell you to accept the decline. But what if the decline isn't inevitable? What if it's actually preventable and even reversible? That's what I want to walk you through today. 5 specific facts about solo aging that change everything once you understand them. And I'm warning you right now, one of these is going to contradict something you've probably believed for years. Another one is going to explain why you've been struggling with something you thought was just normal aging. And by the time we get to number 1, you're going to understand why connection matters more than any supplement or exercise program. Starting with number 5, and this one tends to shock people because it's so simple yet so powerful. Your cortisol rhythm is broken, and you don't even know it's happening. Cortisol is a hormone. Most people think of it as the stress hormone, and technically that's correct, but it's more nuanced than that. Cortisol has a natural rhythm. It's supposed to spike in the early morning. That spike wakes you up, energizes you, tells your body it's time to be alert. Then throughout the day, it gradually decreases. By evening, it should be low, allowing melatonin to rise and make you sleepy. This natural rhythm, called your cortisol curve, is fundamental to everything from your metabolism, to your immune function, to your ability to sleep. But here's what happens when you're living alone. That rhythm gets disrupted. Your cortisol doesn't spike when it should, or it spikes too high, or it stays elevated all evening when it should be dropping. The consequence is that everything downstream falls apart. Your sleep becomes fragmented. Your appetite gets weird. Your energy crashes mid-afternoon. Your mood becomes flat. And you have no idea why, because cortisol is invisible. You can't feel it. You can't see it. But your body knows something's off. Why does this happen to men living alone? Because the primary regulator of your cortisol rhythm isn't actually internal. It's external. It's light. Specifically, morning light. When natural light hits your eyes in the early morning, it sends a signal to your brain, literally to a cluster of neurons called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. That says daytime has begun. That signal triggers the cortisol spike. It synchronizes your entire endocrine system. But when you're living alone, especially if you're retired or don't have a structured schedule, you might not be getting exposed to morning light in any consistent way. You sleep in. You stay inside. You check email in dim light. Your brain never gets that signal. So your cortisol rhythm just drifts. Research from sleep labs across Europe found something fascinating. When they compared circadian disruption in older men, the most significant difference wasn't between sick and healthy men. It was between men living with others and men living alone. Why? Because when you live with someone, there's structure. There's a reason to get up at a certain time. There's someone to interact with, there are meal times, there's social engagement. All of that creates what researchers call Zeitgebers, one-time givers. External cues that keep your internal clock synchronized. When you're alone, you have to create those cues intentionally, and most men don't. They just let their schedule dissolve. I remember working with a patient named David. He was 66, recently retired from a career in accounting. David had always been organized. His whole life had been structured around work schedules and client meetings, but retirement threw him off. Suddenly, there was no reason to get up at 6 a.m., no office to go to, no meetings to attend. Within 3 months, David's sleep had deteriorated. He was waking up at 3 a.m. and couldn't fall back asleep. He felt exhausted during the day but wired at night. He came to me thinking he needed sleeping pills. His blood work was fine. His heart was fine. But his cortisol rhythm was completely inverted, high at night when it should be low, low in the morning when it should be high. We didn't give him medication. We changed one thing. David started sitting outside on his porch from 6:30 to 7 a.m. every single morning. That's it. 30 minutes. Natural light. No phone. No distractions. Within a week, his sleep improved slightly. Within 3 weeks, it was significantly better. Within 2 months, David told me he felt like himself again. He was waking up naturally around 6:30. He felt energized in the morning. His afternoon slump disappeared. The science here is that morning light, specifically the blue wavelength in natural light, triggers a cascade of hormonal events. It suppresses melatonin production. It stimulates cortisol release. It sets your circadian clock. This isn't theory. This is measurable biology. The practical action is straightforward. Get 20 to 30 minutes of natural sunlight exposure within the first 2 hours of waking. It doesn't have to be intense. Overcast days work. You don't need to stare at the sun. Your eyes just need to register the light, and your skin should be exposed too. Sit outside, take a walk, do yard work. The key is consistency. Every day, same time if possible. Now, when you pair this with morning movement, even just a 10-minute walk, you amplify the effect. Movement increases cortisol sensitivity. It helps your body respond more effectively to that natural cortisol spike. So morning light plus movement creates a domino effect through your entire system. Your energy improves, your sleep deepens, your mood lifts, your appetite normalizes. This is the foundation. Everything else we're going to discuss builds on top of this. Number 4 is about something that happens to your muscles around age 65. Your muscles stop listening to protein. Not completely, but they become resistant to it. Resistant in the sense that they don't respond as robustly as they used to. Think about how your muscles worked when you were 30. You'd eat a steak. Your digestive system would break down that protein into amino acids. Those amino acids would travel to your muscles. Your muscles would receive them and build new tissue. It was efficient, clean, predictable now. At 70, something has changed. Your muscles still receive the amino acids, but they don't utilize them as effectively. Scientists call this anabolic resistance. It's like your muscle cells have become skeptical. They're less responsive. They require more stimulus to trigger growth, more protein, more intense stimulation, more time between meals for recovery. But here's where it gets problematic. The average older man doesn't eat more protein as he ages. He eats less. His appetite decreases. Cooking for one feels pointless. He skips meals or grabs quick convenience foods. He's eating 30% less protein than he did in his 50s, exactly when he should be eating 30% more. The result: sarcopenia, muscle wasting. And it's not like losing muscle in a gym when you're 40, where you know exactly why and you can rebuild it in weeks. Sarcopenia in older age is sneaky. It happens gradually. Your shirts fit looser. You notice you're not as strong when opening jars. Stairs become harder, but you attribute it to aging. You don't realize your muscles are literally withering because they're not getting adequate protein. I had a patient named Marcus. He was 75, a retired construction manager from Austin, Texas. Marcus had always been proud of his strength. Even in retirement, he'd stay active. But over a few years, he'd noticed a slow decline. His wife had passed away about 5 years before he came to see me, and he'd been living alone ever since. He was eating. He wasn't starving or anything, but his meals had become informal. Breakfast was often just coffee and toast. Lunch might be a sandwich he picked up. Dinner was wherever he felt like cooking. When we analyzed his protein intake, it was barely 45 grams a day. For a 75-year-old man with anabolic resistance, that's inadequate. He needed at least 80 to 100 grams spread throughout the day. We restructured his eating around a simple principle: protein at every meal. Breakfast became eggs with whole wheat toast. Lunch was either chicken, fish, or turkey with vegetables. Dinner was lean beef or salmon. Within 6 weeks, Marcus noticed his grip strength was improving. Within 3 months, he could carry groceries without feeling exhausted. Within 6 months, he felt stronger than he had in years. Here's the key mechanism. Your muscles have a threshold for protein utilization. If you eat 60 grams at dinner, your muscles might only use 25 or 30 grams of it. The rest is wasted. But if you distribute 30 grams at breakfast, 30 at lunch, and 30 at dinner, your muscles capture and utilize almost all of it. Frequency matters. Timing matters. The other piece is this. Pair your protein with foods containing omega-3 fatty acids, salmon, sardines, walnuts, flaxseed. Why? Because omega-3s reduce inflammation, and low-grade inflammation is one of the primary drivers of anabolic resistance. When inflammation is high, your muscles don't respond to protein. When inflammation is reduced, they respond better. So you're creating two interventions simultaneously: adequate protein plus anti-inflammatory nutrients. At number 3, we're talking about something that affects almost every older man, but almost no doctor screens for it: deep sleep loss. And it's not the same as insomnia. Most men think sleep is sleep. You close your eyes. You're unconscious for 8 hours. You wake up. That's sleep, right? But sleep has layers. It has architecture. Your brain cycles through different sleep stages, and each stage does different things. Light sleep is like the waiting room. Your brain is still partially aware. You can wake up easily if something happens. Then you move into deeper stages. Deep sleep, slow wave sleep, is where the magic happens. This is where your brain consolidates memories. This is where your body releases growth hormone and repairs tissues. This is where your brain's cleaning system, the glymphatic system, activates and clears out the metabolic waste that accumulated during your waking hours. The problem is that most older men don't get enough deep sleep. Their sleep architecture changes. They spend more time in light sleep and less time in deep sleep. They're asleep for 8 hours, but they're only getting maybe 30 minutes of actual deep sleep instead of the 90 to 120 minutes they need. Why does this happen? Partially, it's biological aging. Your brain changes. You naturally lose some deep sleep capacity, but it's also behavioral. If you're living alone, you don't sleep as deeply. Your nervous system doesn't fully relax because there's no one else there. You maintain a subtle alertness. You're closer to waking. You wake up more frequently. The consequences are significant. Inadequate deep sleep is associated with cognitive decline, increased Alzheimer's risk, mood disturbances, metabolic problems, and immune dysfunction. It's not just about feeling tired. It's about accelerated aging at the neurological level. I worked with a patient named Robert, 72, a retired insurance salesman from Denver. Robert came to me complaining of what he called foggy brain. He'd wake up after a full night's sleep and feel mentally unclear for hours. He'd lose his train of thought during conversations. He was worried about early dementia. His daughter had suggested he get a sleep study. When we did the study, Robert's sleep looked deceptively normal on the surface. He was getting 7 to 8 hours, but his sleep architecture was disrupted. He was spending 70% of his sleep time in light stages and only 30% in deep sleep. His brain wasn't getting the restoration it needed. We made 3 changes. First, we moved his dinner earlier, finished eating by 6 p.m. instead of 7:30 or 8. Why? Because if you're still digesting food when you're trying to sleep, your body can't fully relax into deep sleep. Second, we cooled his bedroom. Most people don't realize this, but your body falls asleep more easily and sleeps more deeply when the environment is cool, around 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Third, we added morning light exposure and movement, which connects back to fact number 5. We also suggested a supplement, magnesium glycinate, about 400 milligrams about an hour before bed. Magnesium activates your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system. It tells your body it's safe to relax. It's not a sedative. It's not forcing you to sleep. It's just removing one of the blocks preventing deep sleep. Within 8 weeks, Robert's sleep study showed significant improvement. His deep sleep had doubled, and more importantly, his cognitive clarity returned. He wasn't foggy in the mornings anymore. His family noticed he was more engaged in conversations. The practical steps are cool bedroom, earlier dinner, consistency with sleep and wake times, morning light exposure, and considering magnesium supplementation. These aren't complicated, but they're powerful. Number 2 is about something that almost every older man is doing wrong, and the consequences are real. Fast twitch muscle fiber preservation. Your muscles are composed of different types of fibers. Slow twitch fibers are built for endurance. They're what you use for walking, standing, maintaining posture. Fast twitch fibers are built for power and speed. They're what you use to catch yourself if you trip. They're what allow you to get up off the floor. They're what you need to respond quickly to sudden changes in balance or position. The problem is that as men age, they preferentially lose fast twitch fibers. By age 75, some men have lost 40 to 50% of their fast twitch fiber population. And here's the critical part. Regular walking and gentle exercise do almost nothing to preserve fast twitch fibers. Walking preserves slow twitch fibers beautifully, but it does nothing for fast twitch. This is why falls become so dangerous for older men. A fall at 35 results in a scraped knee. A fall at 75 results in a hip fracture and potentially the end of independence. I worked with a patient named James, 70, a retired airline pilot from San Francisco. James was active. He walked 5 miles daily. His cardiovascular fitness was excellent, but he tripped stepping off a curb, a simple stumble that a younger person would catch themselves from instantly. James couldn't. He fell and broke his hip. When he recovered, we added resistance training to his routine, specifically fast movement resistance, squats where he explosively stood up, step-ups done quickly, push-ups with controlled speed. Not heavy weights, just intention and speed. Within 3 months, his reactive balance improved dramatically. He felt more confident, more stable, more in control of his body. The prescription: 2 sessions per week of intentional speed resistance training, compound movements, quick execution, pair with protein within 2 hours after training. But here's what ties everything together. Number 1, the fact that makes all the others more powerful: social engagement and meaningful connection. This isn't about loneliness as an emotion. This is about loneliness as a biological mechanism. When older men live alone and don't have regular social engagement, their entire physiology changes. Their inflammatory markers increase. Their immune function decreases. Their cortisol rhythm stays disrupted. Their sleep doesn't improve even with interventions. Their motivation to eat well or exercise evaporates. Why? Because the brain interprets chronic isolation as threat. It activates defense mechanisms. It shifts from a growth mode to a survival mode. This isn't psychological. This is measurable in blood work. It's visible in immune markers. It's encoded in gene expression. I had a patient named Edward, 77, a retired engineer from Atlanta. Edward had been widowed for 6 years. His kids lived out of state. He had no real close friends locally. He was going through the motions of life, eating, sleeping, existing, but there was no engagement, no connection. His inflammatory markers were through the roof. His sleep was poor despite all the interventions we'd tried. His protein intake was low because eating alone felt pointless. His motivation to exercise was non-existent. We didn't treat this with medication, we prescribed connection. Edward joined a volunteer program at a local community center. He started attending a men's breakfast group at a nearby church. He called his kids every Sunday at the same time. He reached out to an old friend and restarted their chess game tradition via video calls. Within 3 months, his inflammatory markers had normalized. His sleep improved without any additional interventions. His appetite returned. His motivation for exercise came back naturally. He felt alive again. The minimum threshold is 3 to 5 meaningful social interactions per week, in person, phone, or video, with people who know you and care about you. Frequency matters. Consistency matters. Here's the truth. Your relationships aren't separate from your health. They are your health. They're encoded in your biology. They're written in your blood work. They're expressed at the cellular level. Living alone doesn't doom you, but it requires intention. It requires you to deliberately create the structure, the light exposure, the protein distribution, the sleep optimization, the resistance training, and the social connection that other people get automatically from living with family. If you take one thing from this, let it be this. The rest of your life doesn't have to look like you think it does. The decline isn't inevitable. Every single intervention we've covered is actionable. Starting today, get outside tomorrow morning, eat protein at breakfast, cool your bedroom tonight, add 2 resistance sessions to your week, and call someone who matters to you. It's never too late to invest in the life you deserve to live.